Hello, this is Lisa Russick with the podcast We're All Psychic, and this is the first episode of my sound healing series. So I'm going to talk about sound healing anytime you hear me say this is an episode of the sound healing series. And guess what? I still think we're all psychic. You better believe it, sister and mister and everybody else. Yeah. So I want to do audio only, of course, for an audio podcast for a podcast, especially an audio, for sound healing, see what you learn, what I learn, what we can do. But for this first episode, I'm just going to go over some introduction to what this is exactly and what my intention is in doing this. First of all, sound healing, it's most people today will know of it as like crystal singing bowls, or you'll see people with singing bowls, maybe meditating with them. And you might see tuning forks being used in different ways to heal people. And a very common thing you can think of is ultrasound. And ultrasound does a lot. And that's using sound waves to do a lot of things. But that's not necessarily metaphysical sound waves. That's not necessarily the healing frequencies I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the 432 hertz frequency scale. In music and in general, in sound in general, and music and notes, and all the histories of musical notes, there are all kinds of scales, all kinds of frequencies associated with scales. But the 432 hertz scale is like the one that most people want to use. So there's solfeggio frequencies you can use too, and I do have the tuning forks for that. And the 432 hertz, the special thing that I like about it is because of what it's known as. It is known as the natural frequency of the universe. And it is believed to promote harmony and resonance with the Earth's vibration. And this is called Schumann resonance, I do believe, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So this is a wonderful thing to me because I've been working with them with sound bowls and with my harp. I tune my harp to the 432 hertz frequencies, and I'll tune my guitar to the 432 hertz frequencies because I have a tuner that will help me do that correctly. So in my sound bowls, I'm missing one right now, but I have from middle C to high C in my bowls in the 432 hertz frequencies. And that includes the sharps, except for my F sharp, which I still haven't replaced because I don't have the monies to right now. But I will. It'll happen. Or it might be a birthday present from somebody out there. Hey guys, I need an F sharp in the 432 hertz frequencies. I think I better double check. Don't do it. Don't do it. The person who got me interested in this was Angelina. And you've seen her on the podcast if you've listened and seen. She did the last podcast I think she did was one of her moon sessions with me, and she was demonstrating what that's like for each person. And she does usually use a whole bunch of singing and music, and she does it with the sound bowls that I'm talking about, the 432 hertz sound bowls and gongs and rattles and all kinds of cool stuff, and tuning forks too. But now, if you look at the 432 hertz, what does that translate to for everybody else in the normal world? What is middle C and high C if you are not a musician? Well, in the musical scale that we use in our culture, we have usually we would look at it from A to A, or A to, is it G sharp or A flat? A flat? I don't know what it starts at. I'm not a music theorist. But, or C to C on the piano is usually how you do it. And different instruments, guitar, you probably have it tuned to E, so you might E to E it. But everything is pretty much, basics. If you look at a piano, middle C is that C that everybody learns is their first note, basically. If you look at a piano, it'll be the one right smack dab in the middle. That's middle C. And the one that looks like it up 8 notes is high C. And it has got 2 black notes to the right of it, and it has a white note to the left of it, and to the left of that there are black notes, 3 black notes. And of course there's white notes in between, or keys in between those. I'm saying notes, but keys is what I need. So I'm trying to give you a visual there. If you're a guitarist, 432 hertz and 440 hertz are both A. I don't know why I say if you're a guitarist. I don't know why that matters, but it's like a strange kind of thing. Like with my keyboard, I can't tune my keyboard. It's a digital piano, so I can't tune it to 432 hertz. However, I do have audio gear that does that. So yeah, experimental with my ideas. I might do that. And that will be something down the road, about a month or two. I'm going to give you a little history on what the Chat GPT AI people say. You know I love the Chat GPT AI. This is not the astrologer, though. This is just Chat GPT. This is what they say about the history of sound healing, and they have some other pretty interesting stuff. They have some pretty interesting stuff in here. I had to kind of dig for it, but I got some good stuff out of this. In ancient civilizations, the Egyptians used sound to balance energy and promote healing. And ancient Greeks, and they're talking about Pythagoras a lot in here, they explored the relationship between music, math, and healing. And Pythagoras had a lot of stuff that he did. Let's see. Pythagoras, in around 500 BCE, or BC, however you prefer to do that, before the zero, a long time ago, he was a Greek philosopher and mathematician. Pythagoras, if you've done math in high school or even middle school or whatever, you've heard of, the Pythagorean theorem, I think is what Pythagorean theorem. Well, he does a lot of cool stuff, Mr. Pythagoras. And guess what else he does? Or did? He used sound and music to heal physical and emotional imbalances. He believed that specific musical intervals could realign the body's energy. And that was in 500 BC by someone we still talk about. His mathematical abilities and the things he came up with and his theories and his facts that we have made into our math systems. Now, if you want to talk about some ancient times, well, we got Tibet. We don't know how far back life goes in Tibet, really, do we? In ancient Tibet and Nepal, it says the monks have been using singing bowls for centuries in meditation and healing ceremonies, and they believe the bowls create vibrations to balance the body's energy and promote relaxation, which everybody will agree with who sat next to a sound bowl pretty much be like, oh yeah. Not that, I haven't asked everybody, but I'm making a big assumption that they would all say, oh yeah, I like this, I'm relaxed. I don't sound relaxed, but that's how you feel. You're like, oh, all right. But especially if you target certain things, and we'll get to that. And so, even as far back, according to the AI, as far back as we know, over 40,000 years ago is the didgeridoo in the Aborigines in Australia. They have, Aboriginal people have used the didgeridoo in healing ceremonies forever. And they believed that the deep vibrations promoted cellular healing and relieve pain and alter consciousness. And if you don't know what a didgeridoo is, it's a long, kind of like a long carved stick. That's very long. It's like the size, probably about 6 feet, 5 feet, sometimes 4 feet. They're pretty long and skinny, and they have a tube, and people do this thing called circular breathing with them. And I can't do the circular breathing, but they breathe in through their nose and out through their mouth while they're doing it, so it's a continuous humming sound. And I've seen people do it and heard people do it, and it does put you kind of in a trance in a very relaxed state, and it feels great. So that's really old, dude. And then we have, Vedic chants and Sanskrit mantras, and they believe that speaking certain words, and this is very, very much connected to sound healing, speaking and singing. They believe that you could use Sanskrit chants and harmonize the mind, the body, the spirit, and some of the mantras were tuned to these frequencies that were aligning with specific chakras back in that time, supposedly. And we're going to talk about what we know about that soon. So there have been some scientific studies, medical studies, and you may have heard of this one, Alfred Tomatis. You say tomatoes, I say tomatis. And he had this Mozart effect, and I think you may have heard of this before, where if people listen to classical music, especially Mozart's compositions, it can make you have improved cognitive function, it can reduce stress, and it can help children with autism, supposedly, and speech disorders, just to listen to Mozart. This is what this guy found in the 50s and 1990s, 50s through the 90s. Now, the University of Florence in 2019 did a study on the 432 hertz versus the 440 hertz. And this study compared the effects on the human nervous system And it did find that this 432 hertz music significantly reduced heart rate and promoted relaxation. Now, there is also another person, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering these names. I'm not smart enough to think ahead. I read them and I'm like, okay, I got that. But it says John Beaulieu and tuning fork therapy. So this guy, John Beaulieu, Beaulieu, he's a sound healer and scientist, and he researched how tuning forks can impact the nervous system too. This is tuning forks, though. He found that specific frequencies could stimulate nitric oxide production, improving circulation and reducing inflammation. It's kind of like that mudra, if you watched the mudra or listened to the mudra podcast that Donna and I did, where we put our middle finger with our thumb finger and it raised our circulation through our body. I think that was the one that did that. And my feet got hot. And if you've probably heard of binaural beats if you're listening to this podcast, so I'm not going to talk too much about that, but binaural beats are like when you play two slightly different frequencies at the same time in different ears, and it can alter brainwaves in some ways, supposedly. And people say, studies have even said this, it can help with relaxation, focus, and even pain relief. And of course, we have, our stories about our famous people. We have our Edgar Casey. And he claimed that sound vibrations could heal the body. He recommended it. He recommended toning, they call it toning, vocal sound therapy, for various ailments. And Nikola Tesla also had a quote that this ChatGPT AI gave me on frequency and healing. He famously said, quote, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." Yeah, I like it. And then there's this person named Paul Horn, and he does this pyramid echo experiments. So he is a musician, and he recorded the flute inside the Great Pyramid of Giza, and he showed that there were these natural resonances that some people believe have healing properties in the Great Pyramid when he played his flute in there. So, and then there were also celebrities who did sound healing, according to this, and they say Joni Mitchell, Bob Marley, Alicia Keys, Kanye West, and they've all used sound healing and sound bowls and all kinds of creative wellness stuff in their singing practices and stuff like that. So it's like, all through rock, pretty much. And, this is the most interesting thing. I find it again. I think it was 1939. I'm going to double check this, guys, because this is one of the things that made me kind of have a little whiplash. Oh, my listeners, it's much worse. Just kidding. In 1953, I was like, that's like 75 years ago or less? I don't know, man, it's less. So it says in 1953, the International Organization for Standardization, ISO 16, officially set the note A to 440 hertz as the global standard. Until then, people were using all kinds, anywhere from 415 to 450 that we know of in the 19th century. And in 1917, the American Federation of Musicians first recommended 440 hertz as a standard, but it wasn't really accepted until about 1936. And then they discussed it more as a concert pitch. They really wanted to have like a universal concert pitch. I guess it doesn't say why here, but I'm assuming it's so that people could move and play their instruments and not have to tune differently. Maybe. I don't know. It seems like most people can tune their instruments anyway, but maybe they didn't. I don't know. My best guess is that it was for travel. And everybody's syncing up to the right frequencies. But I really don't know, because that's around, in the 50s. That's when people were starting to get out and about planes and travel around the world, really. Anybody could. You got TV. You got to sync all that stuff up. It's really crazy. 1953, they changed this universal sound frequency of healing for the body and the earth and everything to 440 hertz. And the number between that is 8, and that is number of control. Just kidding. I'm just playing with you. 432 hertz, 4 plus 3 plus 2 is 9. So it's like, this is like 9. 9 is a global number. It's like giving back to the world. The global number is kind of interesting. Just kind of put that there. And that's a little history on sound healing. It's just a little, trust me. So what I'm going to do with the sound healing series is I'm actually going to put it into practice throughout this whole series. I have been suffering from PTSD, and there's really no medication for PTSD, and there's really therapies, but everybody kind of has to process that differently from what I understand. And I'm a spiritualist. I don't think a therapist is going to help me too much unless they're a spiritualist. So I thought, I'm doing this sound series, and I really want to talk about something I can heal or try to work on healing with the sound frequencies as we explore them in this podcast. And I chose the PTSD because it's the hardest thing I'm dealing with right now as far as me and energies in my body. And PTSD, if you don't know anything about it, stands for post-traumatic stress disorder. And usually it's, you have traumas. Yes, post-traumatic stress disorder traumas. And these traumas can energetically get stuck in your body, and you get physical side effects. You get all kinds of side effects. And mainly I've damaged my relationships and everything because I was damaged. So something just broke. It's like what it felt like. I snapped or broke, or it's not broken. I'm not broken. You know what I'm saying? But there's moments where, the PTSD episode, the first one lasted like 4 or 5 days. And just 2 days ago, I got triggered again just talking about something that upset me. And I haven't really calmed down from it, And then somebody else triggered me yesterday, and I just haven't been really myself. So I was thinking, I started this sound series yesterday and didn't get to finish it because I was going to go into a lot about the frequencies and what exactly they do and all that stuff. But that's kind of dry right now. I really want to put this into the podcast episode series. So I want to talk about spiritual perspectives of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. You can look up the medical ones on your own. So they talk about, like say a shaman might talk about energy fragmentation. Some people believe that you can have a piece of you get stuck somewhere in your trauma. And a shaman might do something called a soul retrieval and go back to that trauma and get it and bring it back and put it in your energy field. And some people say that intense emotional change of trauma, the intense emotional charge of trauma can get stuck in the body's energy centers, like the chakras or in the aura. So this is like blocked energy. You might hear people say your energy is blocked. And this can cause all kinds of problems in your emotional health, physical health, I believe, and your thinking, right? You got blocked energy, you can't think maybe as clearly as you did before about things. If you're thinking about a trigger from a trauma and you're in a trauma state of fight or flight or run away or beat the crap out of someone, whatever it might be for you, or just staying still and not moving maybe even. So then there's lower vibrational imprints. Some people may say, you may hear of lower vibrations in energy work or spirituality or mediumship especially. So lower vibrational energies are not the hertz, say like what we're talking about with hertz and sound healing maybe. Or maybe it is, I don't know. But in this case, some people believe that trauma can create negative vibrational imprints in someone's energy field and then attract similar experiences or those emotions over time. That's kind of what most people's psychology believe. If you have had it happen to you, you're probably going to perpetuate it because that's all you know. And so do spiritualists believe this. If you've been around something all your life and it's what you know, you keep going after it, keep tracking it until you try to change the root issue within yourself. So then, some people think that you can also have post-traumatic stress disorder from ancestral or past life trauma. And that's kind of like unresolved ancestral trauma, past life experiences, stuff like that are resurfacing for healing, if you believe in generational stuff and reincarnation and such. And some people just say in the nervous system, in the chakras, you can just have imbalances from the trauma all around. Trauma can cause overactivity in the root chakra, the solar plexus chakra, and the heart chakra. And the root is your safety feeling. Solar plexus in this situation is like control. I usually think of that as the solar plexus as your willpower, but it's just control. Being not like feeling controlled or out of control or something. And then heart chakra, emotional processing. Like trauma is like you can't process it. That's the problem. It's kind of stuck. It feels like in there somewhere. It really does feel like that. So, for sound healing, I have a bunch of techniques I'm going to try. I'm going to try some stuff with my tuning forks with you guys. I'm going to try some things with my singing bowls with you guys. And I'm going to do some vocal toning and humming. May try some drumming. And some more stuff I'll tell you about in the next episode. Because I'm going to put together for you in the next episode a bunch of information about what the frequencies are associated with. And I will have it will be an audio podcast, but I will have a video up of it so that you can see the chart I will make for this. And I will also put in that episode, when I publish that episode, I will put the chart on our website and on social media and all that good stuff. So everybody, I'll keep this kind of short and sweet for the first episode. And I do want to explain one lovely note. It's the G note. I'm starting with a G note in the 432 hertz tuning, and that is resonating with 384 hertz. Okay? So this is associated with the throat chakra, and this chakra is about communication, self-expression, and the release of suppressed emotions in this case. And that is something that is a key area that is affected by PTSD, especially the throat. Oh, you just don't know what to say, and then you say things and you didn't mean it, and then you don't say things that you need to say. Oh my goodness, it's just so confusing. But for example, this G in the 432 hertz tuning can help in different ways. In the body, for physical healing, it can help regulate the vagus nerve. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. I will look that up next time. Maybe. Which is critical for calming the nervous system after trauma. And this G note in the 432 hertz tuning, can release tension, muscle tension in the neck, shoulders, and jaw. And this is kind of where a lot of trauma is stored for the throat. And I am always clenching my jaw, and a lot, not always, I'm doing it a lot. And in my neck, you guys know about my neck if you listen to the podcast, my neck's a mess. And my shoulders too. And I do keep all the tension there, and it's just stuck there, it's just stuck there. It doesn't do anything but stick there. So I'm hoping the sound stuff might help. And it can also help thyroid function. So that thyroid can be really badly impacted by chronic stress, which is what PTSD is. And when they say chronic stress, I really understand that with PTSD right now, because like I do take Klonopin for my tremor and anxiety, but it doesn't help the PTSD at all. My blood pressure has been so high, and it's always so low. But whenever I go to the doctor, it's high, and I'm like, why? Like, why is it so high? And I couldn't figure it out. My best guess is PTSD reaction going on and on and on and on and on, and just stress. So the G can also do this for your mind, psychological and emotional type healing. It can help release suppressed emotions, like he says, I'm thinking like the mind and the emotions together, psychological, emotional. So it can release suppressed emotions, like through the vibrations, kind of shaking it out is how I think of it. The vibrations kind of vibrating out the suppressions, this release, the traumas, the emotions. And you can verbalize your emotions with the mantras and stuff like that. And that can be really great for processing the trauma. It also can help in breaking negative thought patterns and loops. So that's something I really had to work on younger, and now I'm doing it again with the PTSD, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to shift from a fear-based thinking to clear thinking, and as clear as I can get anyway. And then there's, of course, your soul energetic healing with the G note. It can unblock stagnant energy in the throat chakra, and it stores trauma. It can store trauma in the throat chakra related to not feeling heard or not feeling safe to talk or being told to shut up a lot or to silence or just silenced in general. I've always felt that way until I was about always. I always say always. I never say never. I never always say never, ever, always. So, but I did feel that way all my life. I felt unheard. I didn't feel like it was safe to speak until I was in like my 30s. Playing this G note can strengthen the connection between your heart and your mind because it's the throat chakra. So it's right between your third eye and your heart chakra. So it strengthens that connection. So it can bring a balanced emotional expression. And that's something I've talked about on the podcast, my mind and my heart and putting them together. So, another thing it can do is it can bring us to a place, or me hopefully, to a place where I can authentically express myself. Trauma can suppress that ability to authentically express oneself. And I feel that because I'm not expressing who I am, I'm expressing something that I'm not sure what it is. It's just fear and trauma. I mean, the word trauma is like, there's a lot associated with it. Everybody associates something differently with the words traumas and, traumatic experiences, post-traumatic stress disorder, trauma, just traumatized. You hear that a lot. And maybe somebody might say it jokingly, but I was traumatized. But it's a real thing. A lot of people really are traumatized by something in their lives. It doesn't matter what it is. Don't judge people for what they're traumatized by, I would advise. Because what you might be traumatized by is not necessarily what somebody else might be traumatized for. It's really the energy, right? The energy of the trauma. So spiritually, using this G bowl, the 432 hertz sound bowl, the G bowl, and yes, I'm going to play it for you. It can bring you a higher awareness spiritually. It can bring a connection for higher guidance, supporting inner wisdom. It can help release past life or ancestral trauma. This is really what the spiritual stuff goes down into. And it can help align with angelic and celestial frequencies. And that can really bring you a sense of protection and safety. So the G note specifically helping PTSD, it can have vocal release with humming, singing, or toning G. It can soothe hypervigilance, and I've got a lot of hypervigilance by calming the nervous system, which is the first thing I think we talked about. And it helps process the suppressed emotions, just hearing it, singing it, playing it. These are ones that are related to fear, shame, or inability to speak one's truth. And it can restore a sense of inner stability by aligning breath, sound, and emotion. So let's go. Let me pull out my G bowl for you guys, and we'll see what happens. So after listening to the G bowl in the 432 hertz that I just played for you and focusing on, well, I wasn't really focusing. I really was just listening to it, and I mixed it, and I listened back to it in the mix. And I do feel like my throat is clearer. I don't know if my voice sounds different. It hasn't been that long since I recorded that and listened, maybe a couple hours. And I did do a reading in between, and I feel like I feel like, that's the best way I described it, or was describing it in the podcast, what I was hoping for of all the things that I described, what the G bowl might help with regarding PTSD, is this feeling like my mind and my heart have a bridge more than before. Like there was a block there, and it's still there a little bit, it's still there. Need to hit that G bowl some more, I guess, work with it some more. But I feel like there's like a flow there, and I kind of want to work on my third eye, so I might bust out that bowl. Anyway, thank you, listeners and watchers. I love you. Thank you, Everclear, my sponsor. Everclear is an advice app and website where you can get advice from psychics and empaths, so you can get the clarity you need to create the life you deserve. And I'm Lisa on there, Lisa Russick, soon. Used to be Lisa P, but now I think I'm going to change. They are changing my name to Lisa Russick anytime now, darlings, anytime, on everclear.com. And it's a wonderful place. Go get your reading. It'll change your life, or you'll change your life because of it. That's more like it. And lastly, listeners, I love you and thank you so much. I'm going to turn this into a video just so that I can mix the audio a certain way at the end, or I'm going to try to make it like a 360 surround sound for people who can hear that in my audio program. So that's just for the sound bowl. And I love you guys. Peace. Until next time, out.